All right, welcome back, everybody, to our weekly Zoom teaching session. It's hard to believe, but we're actually at the end of the Song of Prayer. So this is a pretty big milestone, so I have to figure out where we're going to go from here. But it's a beautiful culmination of this supplement to the course that really summarizes and goes deep into some really core concepts. And the way I like to think of it is kind of like a hologram or like a crystal kind of thing, where everything, really every one of these sections, every one of these lessons that we've done really isn't any different than the other ones. It's not like we covered something completely different or unique or yeah, that is separate from the other topics. It's kind of like each one is just a different aspect of the same thing, really, because it's all oneness. So ego is complication, right? Ego is sides of things, steps, actions, perspectives, perception, right? To kind of hide the fact that we're all one. So what's beautiful about this course is that well, I wouldn't say it feeds that, but it meets us where we are, right? And allows all those different aspects within the mind to slowly converge into one, right? So the Song of Prayer is divided up into three sections, right? So there's prayer, forgiveness, and then healing. And all of those are just different aspects of the same thing. So as we go up the ladder of prayer, we move from wanting things and fixing problems and resolving conflicts within the world and praying for healing or whatever into it starts to converge on forgiveness, right? Because then you start to realize, oh, I'm actually one, and maybe I actually already have what I need. So it's actually, we move into the place where it's, oh, wait a second, maybe it's not my world that needs to be fixed. Maybe I should be praying for my mind that sees the problems, that sees the illnesses, that sees those, the guilt to be healed. And that's where we run into forgiveness, right? Which goes to the deeper level, where we learn that what are our deepest problems, right? They tend to be interpersonal problems, right? Feelings of abandonment, of anger, of sadness, of losing somebody that was important to us. And so it's all these beliefs that we're separate from others. And so that's where forgiveness and remembering that we're one with others, that's where we relieve the guilt. And the guilt is what brought in the whole idea of problems in the first place, right? So it all kind of converges all together. They're all wrapped up into just different aspects of the same thing, which is that we're all one. And so we think that we have all these problems and all these conflicts and all these grievances that we need to forgive and all of that stuff. And it seems that way, and it feels that way. And that kind of is the experience when we're starting out. But eventually we learn that none of it is real, right? So you can kind of, eventually you can forgive the whole thing. And so, because it feels like, okay, I've got to forgive this guy because for screwing me over, and this person for talking behind my back, and my parents for abusing me and whatnot, right? Until we realize, wait a second, all of those are just reflections of myself. That's my guilt, and I'm forgiving. And that's where we eventually realize that we're actually only ever praying for ourselves. There are no enemies out there that we need to pray for, or that need to be healed or whatever. It's us. That's our own guilt that we need to be healed. And so that's where we move into the healing, which is where we are now, right? So healing is like the other ones, is not what we thought it was. It's not what we tend to think of as healing. So we tend to think of healing as going from sick to a sick body to a healthy body, or from an empty bank account to a full bank account, or we heal from uh, conflicting relationships into harmonious, lovely relationships where we're skipping under the rainbow, right? And that's not quite it. Like, you're almost there, but that's not really the truth. Because if you really get those things, then you're actually kind of back where you started. And that's really where this lesson kind of comes in, is that we're well, we're praying to heal. We think we're trying to heal the dream. We think we're trying to heal the body. We think we're trying to heal our bank account. But really, no, what we want to heal when we learn the lesson, what we're really asking to be healed is the mind that dreamed up the empty bank account as punishment for some imagined sin, right? It's the mind that dreams up the war in the Middle East where one side might be genociding another, right? Like, so what's really sick? Is it the bodies over there that seem to be buried under rubble? Is it really the armies over there that are killing off and bombing innocent people? Or is it the mind that dreamed up that whole thing? What it really, and when we realize that we're the dreamer of this whole dream, we realize that we're the sick one. We're the sick one. We're the psychopath that needs to be healed, right? Or to remember that we always were. So that's really what we're asking for. And so and it doesn't mean that the healings don't come, right? Maybe that bank account does get fixed, right? But the healing comes as a reflection of the deeper healing, which is remembering who we are, that we are innocent, that we are holy, that we are the sons of God, the one Son of God, right? As the Course teaches. And then as a reflection of that, when we realize that we're not this guilty wretch that we think we are, right? That's separated and destroyed heaven and has taken away all that is good from the world, we realize that that's a lie, that the truth of us is that we never changed. We've been created like God in all ways, right? When we realize that and remember that about ourselves, then there's no guilt to call in the horrendous punishments and the reflections of guilt and shame and wretchedness that we tend to see within the world. Once we realize, remember who we are, that then begins to heal. But if we think that that's the goal, then we're trapped. Then we're caught in that never-ending cycle of trying to fix a problem, then another problem pops up, or you heal your body and then you die and come back again with another sick body or whatever, right? Like, you still stay on the reincarnation karmic wheel. So that's not real healing. And the sooner you can see through that, the quicker you'll start to turn inward and realize that it's the mind that sees the sickness that is sick. And that's where the healing really comes. And that's what this lesson is going to delve into. All right, I'm going to share my screen here just to give us a little bit of context. So I kind of alluded to this before, right? So what really is healing? Is it to move from having a sick body into a healthy body? Or is it to remember that you're not a body at all? You're not even susceptible to being ill. It's not even possible for you to be sick. It's not even possible for you to suffer in any way. When you remember yourself as you really are, you won't even hope for healing within the dream, because you realize that that's like sitting at a banquet and begging for a few crumbs, right? When you're sitting in front of a feast, right? Like, are you insane? Like, what is wrong with you? Why do you want a healthy body? You can realize that you're not the body at all, that you're perfect oneness. that you're the Holy Son of God himself, right? That you are all powerful, you are holy and innocent and everything that you've been looking for, everything and more, much more, right? And that's why in so many parts of the course, in the Bible and the gospel, right? The problem is not that we are asking for too much, right? That's what we think. Oh my God, I want my like financial situation to be fixed. I want my body to be fixed. I want to be healthy again, or I have this big problem. I want that fixed. Like when you're in that mindset, that you're asking for far too little, right? It's not that you're asking for too much. It feels like, oh my God, that's too big. God will never give me that, right? We're praying to the psychopath God, right? Remember that. Like it's hard to think of that because we usually think of this great God in the sky, but it's the ego God, right? Because like, and Jesus says this in the gospel, right? I think it was in the Sermon on the Mount. Like, what kind of father, when his son asks for bread, will not give him bread? Like, will give him snakes when he asks for, I forget what the exact things are, but like, what kind of God would do that? Like, not the God that you're thinking, right? It's you're praying to the psychopath ego God. And so then when you realize too that if God always gives what we ask for because he created us like himself, like eternally creative, like we're always in every moment we're getting what we're asking for. So the problem is what we're asking for, right? If I'm seeing genocide in the Middle East, then my mind is asking for them. Like it sounds crazy, but the ego loves to see evil on the outside, right? That is what the ego does because it doesn't want to see it within. And the truth is that it's not there, but we believe it is. And so therefore, we love to be mistreated. We love it when people talk about us and especially for no reason, right? Because then you can be like, oh, these people are so awful. I'm just poor little me, right? Just trying to do the right thing. The ego loves that. Like, we think we hate it, but we love it. We secretly do. And if you're really honest, you look inside, we love that. And the same reason we love sickness. Because then we like, I'm just poor little me. Look how weak I am. Look how much I suffered. I couldn't possibly be the horrible psychopath who created this world, right? That we get from sickness. Yeah, so yeah, sorry about that. I'm working off a Wi-Fi extender, but my Starlink is coming in next week, so bear with me this time. Hopefully everything is going smoothly now. But message me in the chat if you can't hear me or anything. Yeah, so I kind of got lost there. So I'm going to move on. Where is my PowerPoint? All right. So what I want to remind everybody of is our little diagram here. You know, it seems kind of silly, but it is a good All right, so I hope this gets better. Will be next week for sure, because I'll have my new internet, but this might be a little choppy. Let me see if I can share my screen again. Okay. All right, so yeah, so if you're trying to understand the course from the ego, from Patrick with his little life, with all of his conflicts, with all of his problems, with um, all of his victimizations by others, right? You can't quite get it because the course is inviting us up to a higher state from that higher mind of remembering that we're the dreamer. And there's higher states in the dreamer, but the dreamer really is the place where we have that decision where we can either decide to dream or to wake up, or we can decide to heal and to realize that everything is taking place within our mind. And so the course is speaking to us here because what we think is that sickness is something that happens from the outside, right? It's something that happens to our body. It came from somebody else. It came from stress from our boss who abuses us. It came from our parents who gave us bad genetics. It came from the ego god who created this world of destruction and death. Um, or it just callously abandoned us here, right? And so there's this, when we're in this ego mindset, we experience God as withholding, as psychopathic, as somebody you need to pray to not be punished, right? You know, rather than the loving, giving, all-powerful God. If God is all-powerful and loving, but why the hell do we not experience that? And the only reason is because God is not the one we think they are, right? We're mistaken about who we are. Because from this place, from the inner mind, when we realize that we're a spirit, we realize that God created us loving just as himself. God created us unable to be harmed, unable to harm others, right? That's our true nature as spirit, eternal, unchanging, all-powerful, ever creative, ever expanding, and exuding love at all times. That's our true nature, and that's how God created us, because that's how God is. That's like, doesn't that make sense? Like, can God only do like create like himself? What is this insanity that we seem to be living in? And that is our own miscreation of believing that we could be separate, that we could be our own creator, that we can create ourselves, right? So we can create all this insanity, we can create these harmful, vulnerable creatures who are harmed by all-powerful governments and world economic forums and armies and whatnot, courts, police that might be out to get you, you know. So where do we heal? The healing really takes place within mind. Trying to heal down here only replaces one illusion for the other. So that's what you do to pray to the ego god. Replace my illusion with something slightly better, but keep me asleep, right? That's really what we're asking for. Keep me asleep in this dream. Don't let me wake up. Don't let me remember, who I really am. But what the Course is inviting us to is the healing of our mind. And that is the healing that takes place here. And the result is the healing of genocides and sicknesses and bankruptcies and all of these things that seem to be bothering us. But the healing itself, the suffering that seems to come from those things. Remember, we're never upset for the reason we think. Our suffering is never actually coming from the poverty or from the conflict with our neighbor or from the body that is weak and frail. That's not really what our suffering is coming from. That is coming as a reflection of the suffering that we experience from believing we're separate. So what's beautiful about that is that the undoing of that can be immediate. When you go inward, when you remember who you are, when you forgive and realize that you're one with somebody else, the joy and the peace that comes from that is exactly what you were longing for, thinking that you wanted a healed body, right? It's not really the healed body that you wanted. It was the joy and the peace of remembering who you are. You don't realize it, but that's really what you want. So that healing comes immediate. And then the after effect of that, of remembering that you're innocent, that you're not this sinful, guilty creature that deserves sickness and death. Once you remember that, the suffering is alleviated immediately. And then later on, as a kind of as a reflection, as an afterthought, the healing comes in. So the healing that we're praying for, the healing that we're remembering is our inheritance, right? We don't need to pray for it, right? We just need to remember that it's there, is the healing of our mind. And that's the spiritual level of healing. It's the undoing of the whole thing. It brings us closer to the waking up and not just to achieve a goal and then be just as vulnerable to all of our needs and wants and everything that come later. All right, so we'll delve into the text. Okay, so our last section, the holiness of healing. So how holy are the healed? For in their sight, their brothers share their healing and their love. Bringers of peace, the Holy Spirit's voice, through whom he speaks for God, whose voice he is, such are God's healers. So what he's saying here is that when we are healed, and again, we're talking about the healing of our mind, when we are healed and we remember who we are, we remember that I'm not Patrick, that I'm not a separate being, right? And that I am the dreamer of the whole dream. So my healing, the healing of this mind, is not just a selfish healing. It is a healing of the whole world, right? Because our mind is the one that's making up this world. And so our healing immediately gets transferred to others. So our healing is not a selfish endeavor. It is a profoundly giving experience. And so our healing is the greatest gift to the world that we could possibly give. And because it's not Patrick's healing, it is the mind, the one mind that unites us all. We're just confused thinking that I'm Patrick, right? That with my little life and my little problems that seem to need healing, and I'm just living in misery, waiting for these. When am I ever going to get a break from this life, right? You know what I mean? That's Patrick's little life, but that's not who we really are. That's an illusion. It's a little trap, right? So when we're asking for the healing of our mind, we are all connected. And so it is a gift to the world. It's not a selfish thing to be healed. That's why they're saying, I thought this is about healing, but it's actually about being healed. They're the exact same thing. They're one and the same. Okay. But they speak for him, capital HM, the Holy Spirit, and never for themselves. They have no gifts, but those they have from God. And these they share because they know that this is what he wills, right? That is, and when he says he wills, it's not kind of like he hopes that we're going to do that. When God wills something, it happens, right? So if God made us and willed us to be as he is, always loving, always peaceful, always giving, then that's what we always are. Like God cannot, it's not like our these little ego creatures that we can hope for something and want something, but it ends up being a disaster. That's not the truth. And when you can realize that, when you can realize, oh, God makes something, it has immediate effect. So I must be like him, right? I must be giving and always loving and always healed. And when that clicks within your mind, you'll then experience it, right? It'll be like a glitch in the matrix. Okay. They are not special. They are holy. They have chosen holiness and given up all separate dreams of special attributes through which they can bestow unequal gifts on those less fortunate. So here is a key aspect of this, right? Because what we get caught in, I get caught in it all the time, is of thinking that my healing is going to turn Patrick into this nicer person, right? Oh, he'll be so nice, he'll have these harmonious relationships, and he'll never have a hating thought towards his neighbor, or, I'll become this holy healer that teaches Course in Miracles or whatever. It's like, no, 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 no. Because I'm the dreamer of this whole dream, Patrick is not the one becoming holy. And really, none of us are becoming holy. It's just a remembering who we are. So it's the mind that that is holy, that is innocent, not Patrick, because this Patrick character is screwed. He was created out of hatred. He was created out of separation to be an ever innocent victim in a big bad world, right? That's what the script is written, right? That's what this character is. And so it's very hard to reconcile sometimes, right? Because you're like, oh my God, this Patrick guy is not holy at all. He's kind of a disaster. And so you get trapped if you think, okay, when you think you're looking for progress, you're looking for progress in your ego character, and you can't find it there. And so that's the good news too, right? Because you don't need it there. Your ego character can be a serial killer, honestly. Can be, and you can be just as holy and just as you can awaken maybe quicker than somebody who thinks that they're a kind, loving, ever innocent little ego, right? So, all right, okay. They are not special, they are holy. They have chosen holiness and given up all separate dreams of special attributes through which they can bestow unequal gifts on those less fortunate. Their healing has restored their wholeness so they can forgive and join the song of prayer in which the healed sing of their union and their thanks to God, right? So I just had another thought there too, right? So like my mind seems to be obsessed with the Middle East a little bit, right? And so really my mind is the same one that's perceiving a genocide, right? And so that's, you know what I mean? So to hope, like the one that awakens is to realize that we are the light. We're not any of these images. And so the mind that is awakening is just as much the one committing atrocities as the one who thinks that he's innocent and just observing them, hoping that they will end with a ceasefire, right? We're the awakening of the one mind, which sees all as equal and all as innocent. There are no victims and victimizers. There's only oneness. Okay. So as witness to forgiveness, aid to prayer, and the effect of mercy truly taught, healing is a blessing. And the world responds in quickened chorus through the voice of prayer. Okay. So it's a witness to forgiveness. So what healing is, when we see the matrix glitch and we stop seeing the witnesses of guilt and we start seeing the witnesses of love, it happens as an acceleration. It's not the goal that we are healed from our cancer or that there seems to be peace or whatever in a certain country. But those are reflections. So they're almost, they come as an aid. So when we see those things, when we see a healing happening, when we see a relationship that seems to be healed within the world, that's not the goal, but it shows, it's a reflection. Oh, my mind is changing. My mind of the dreamer is no longer, is releasing guilt. And therefore, as a reflection of that, we're starting to see more love. And so that's what healing really is. It's not, we're not looking for those reflections, but they come as a help to accelerate the awakening, because we let go of the guilt and the love starts to shine through. And it's like, oh, look, your mind is changing. Look what healed within your dream. Oh, awesome. You're not hoping for that as the end point, but it's a sign that your mind is healing. And when you can see your mind is healing, then it starts to accelerate. And then we move closer and closer to realizing that we're in heaven and where we always were, right? Okay. So, forgiveness shines its merciful reprieve upon each blade of grass and feathered wing and all the living things upon the earth. Fear has no haven here, for love has come in all its holy oneness. Time remains only to let the last embrace of prayer rest on the earth an instant, as the world is shined away. This instant is the goal of all true healers, whom the Christ has taught to see his likeness and to teach like him. So what they're talking about here is the forgiven dream, right? So as we awaken, yeah, the world does become less awful, but only ironically when you're okay with the world being awful because it's not real, right? So when you're okay with that, then the reflections of love start to show up more and more, and then we finally realize, oh wait, to hell with all these reflections, I want the real thing, and then boom, gone. We let it go completely, realizing that reflections can never get us what we really wanted, and so we let it go gently, not like throwing the world away, but it's kind of like it becomes a happier dream as time goes on. We become more connected, more one, more peaceful, until we decide to let it go. So that's what he's talking about here, is kind of the forgiven dream. Okay, think what it means to help the Christ to heal. Can anything be holier than this? God thanks his healers, for he knows the cause of healing is himself, his love, his Son, restored as his completion and returned to share with him creation's holy joy. Do not ask partial healing, nor accept an idol for remembrance of him whose love has never changed and never will. You are as dear to him as is the whole of his creation, for it lies in you as his eternal gift. What need have you for shifting dreams within a sorry world? Do not forget the gratitude of God. Do not forget the holy grace of prayer. Do not forget the forgiveness of God's Son. This is kind of another reflection of that same thing. It can seem like it's a restoration, really, and that's what some people look for, right? You think of biblical Christianity, like God's going to establish his kingdom on earth and all of that stuff, and it's like, not really. What it is, it's just a reflection of remembering that we're already there, right? It's so don't hope for healed bodies and having a perfect healthy body. Like those things are good, and especially as they allow you to release the guilt, right? So if your body's no longer damaged from the vaccine, as one example, then what that does is it's a reflection that then allows you to forgive Pfizer, who maybe mangled your body, right? So in that sense, healing is an aid to forgiveness, right? So when your body is healed, then it allows you, makes it easier for you to let that guilt go, and then it kind of accelerates those things. But you don't need that. So he's saying you can, like, it's there as a reflection, and it's beautiful and it's great because you're getting closer to the truth, but don't mistake it for the truth. The truth is that you never had a body, right? It's that you never left heaven. You never left oneness and peace and innocence and ended up in this hellhole. So, yeah, he's just kind of reminding as we go through this, yes, you'll get healings, you'll get restored relationships and things like that will show up, but they're not the goal. So remember the goal, which is oneness. You first forgive, then pray, and you are healed. Your prayer has risen up and called to God, who hears and answers. You have understood that you forgive and pray, but for yourself. And in this understanding, you are healed. In prayer, you have united with your source and understood that you have never left. This level cannot be attained until there is no hatred in your heart and no desire to attack the Son of God. So yeah, here again, talking about that forgiveness. Because as long as we think there's warring parts, right, that there's a good guy and a bad guy, and there's that belief in separation, then we can't achieve this level of oneness. We're always going to feel like we're conflicted. And so forgiveness is really key. And then the prayer, as we forgive, as we realize we're one with others, as we see the Christ in others, then we don't feel as wretched inside. We don't feel like we have all these problems, and then we slowly start to realize that we are what we are looking for. So never forget this. It is you who are God's son. And as you choose to be him, so are you. And as you choose to be to him, so are you to yourself, and God to you. Nor will your judgment fail to reach to God, for you will give the role to him you see in his creation. Do not choose amiss, or you will think that it is you who are creator in his place, and he is then no longer cause, but only an effect. So here what he's talking about is that we can only experience God as we experience ourselves, because we experience God as the one who created us like himself, right? And so when we think that we're these egos that are vulnerable, that are vengeful, that are weak and powerless, but get angry, we have all this guilt and conflict and all these problems, right? So then we experience God as the same. So we see him as a vengeful God, as one who punishes, as one who gives us a life that is based on death, right? That is time limited, and that bodies that corrupt and fall prey to illness and problems and calamities. So when we judge our brother, when we judge anyone else or anything else, we can't help but experience that in our world and in ourselves, because we're one. So the key to getting past that is to remember who we really are, that we are the innocence, we are the light, we are as God created us. And when we remember that, then the experience then conforms to our belief about what we are and our true nature. So when we believe that we were experiencing the ego God, when we believe that we're an ego, that I'm just Patrick in this big bad world, healing is impossible. For he is blamed for your deception and your guilt. So the God who created this world is obviously murderous and at the very least neglectful, and so we can't help but blame them. And we experience the ego God as many different things. It can be God if you're more religious, but at the very least you will experience the government or the world or evolution or the laws of nature as psychopathic and out to get you. It might even be the legal system. All of those things are just the world. The way that you experience the world is going to conform to how you believe, what you believe about yourself. So he who actually is love becomes the source of fear, for only fear can now be justified in a world where we are separate. Vengeance is his. his great destroyer, death, and sickness, suffering, and grievous loss become the lot of everyone on earth, which he abandoned to the devil's care, swearing he will deliver it no more. Right? So this is the experience of the ego God. That is the experience of ourselves. Anytime we think that we're an ego, that we are not one, that we are not innocent, we experience this of God and of the world, right? That it's a place of destruction and death. Indeed it is, but we're not here. That's the good news. So, okay. So come unto me, my children, once again, without such twisted thoughts upon your hearts. You still are holy with the holiness which fathered you in perfect sinlessness, and still surrounds you with the arms of peace. Dream now of healing, then arise and lay all dreaming down forever. You, you are he your father loves, who never left his home, nor wandered in a savage world with feet that bleed and with a heavy heart made hard against the love that is the truth in you. Give all your dreams to Christ and let him be your guide to healing, leading you in prayer beyond the sorry reaches of the world. He comes for me and speaks my word to you. I would recall my weary son to me from dreams of malice to the sweet embrace of everlasting love and perfect peace. My arms are open to the son I love, who does not understand that he is healed and that his prayers have never ceased to sing his joyful thanks in union with all creation in the holiness of love. Be still an instant. Underneath the sounds of harsh and bitter striving and defeat, there is a voice that speaks to you of me. Hear this an instant, and you will be healed. Hear this an instant, and you have been saved. Help me to wake my children from the dream of retribution and a little life beset with fear that ends so soon it might as well have never been. Let me instead remind you of eternity, in which your joy grows greater as your love extends along with mine beyond infinity, where time and distance have no meaning. While you wait in sorrow, heaven's melody is incomplete, because your song is part of the eternal harmony of love. Without you is creation unfulfilled. Return to me who never left my son. Listen, my child, your father calls to you. Do not refuse to hear the call for love. Do not deny to Christ what is his own. Heaven is here and heaven is your home. So, I mean, obviously this is some beautiful poetry, and very beautiful if you can recognize it, if it speaks to you as the home, that we all have this ache inside of ourselves of longing for this place where we can finally be at home. And again, speaking there to a part that can help, I know for me, to create that compelling logic, right? That there can be nothing outside of God, right? There can be nothing outside of his will. And so we think that we can, and that's one of the tricks of the mind, right? That, okay, there's heaven up there, you know, everything's great up there, but like, no, there can't be any heaven without you. It's not possible, right? Because if you were created by God and created by something, right? So if you really were created by an all-powerful, all-loving God, his happiness would be incomplete without you there. And so, and we obviously know that's impossible, right? So God's can never be unhappy because there's a part missing from him. But then you realize there can never be a part missing from him. And that's where it can go like, oh my God, well, maybe I'm not actually missing from him, you know? And that can be it's almost like a trip, you're almost like on an acid trip or like, you know what I mean? Where it just kind of clicks like, oh my God, maybe I'm not actually missing. And that will, the course offers a lot of these, and then they might be different for different people, but if you open yourself to them, there's these logical leaps because the ego is based on lies. There's all these little logical missteps of things that don't make sense. And if you and we just pass them over like they're nothing. If you sit with them for long enough and you allow that to sink in, that God cannot create anything that is not like himself. It's not possible. Try to think of that being possible and how insane that would be, that God could create evil and suffering and pain. Because when you realize that, when you sit with that, how insane that would be, like, and that we think, oh, well, it's because there's a lesson to be learned, and like as if an all-powerful, all-loving God couldn't teach lessons with peace and love, He needs to use some suffering so we can make our way through that. When you realize that, that is insane. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Then something clicks within the mind. You're like, oh, wait, that wasn't God, that was me. That means this can be undone, right? Maybe I never left. And that's when your mind gets like jumps up another level to a different place. Okay. Creation leans across the bars of time to lift the heavy burden from the world. Lift up your hearts to greet its advent. See the shadows fade away in gentleness. The thorns fall softly from the bleeding brow of him who is the Holy Son of God. How lovely are you, child of holiness, how like to me, how lovingly I hold you in my heart and in my arms. How dear is every gift to me that you have made, who healed my son and took him from the cross. Arise and let my thanks be given you, and my gratitude will come the gift first of forgiveness, then eternal peace. So now return your holy voice to me. The song of prayer is silent without you. The universe is waiting your release because it is its own. Be kind to it and to yourself, and then be kind to me. I ask but this, that you be comforted and live no more in terror and in pain. Do not abandon love. Remember this. Whatever you may think about yourself, whatever you may think about the world, your Father needs you and will call to you until you come to him in peace at last. So that is basically it for that section, the whole section of the Song of Prayer. Beautiful poetry, honestly, it's very lofty. And if you're open to it, I invite you to sit with some of that because it sinks into the mind. The ego loves to glance over these things because they mean very little. Because if we go back to that diagram, right? If we go back here, like this loftiness of being home in heaven and all that stuff, that makes zero sense to this guy, right? He's kind of like, what the hell are you talking about? Oh, that's a beautiful poem, you know what I mean? So, so that's why like it can feel like you're like sometimes it doesn't quite sink in, but if you allow it to sink in, you sit with it. It's not just poetry. There's some logic. There's some big logical leaps in there that can make you realize, wait a second, maybe that is the truth of me. That is the truth of this world we live in. And that awakens you to this place. And it's this place that this poem, that this teaching, this lesson is really coming to, because it is this place that's called the decision maker, where we decide between the ego or we decide between the Holy Spirit, between sin, guilt, and punishment, or the world of forgiveness and healing. And so that within our mind is this deeper part of the dreamer. What do you want to dream of? We dream of what we think about ourselves. And so when we remember that we were created in the likeness and image of God, we realize that in this world of destruction and commerce and scarcity and death and consumption, all of that stuff, doesn't fit with what we really are. And so when we're in this world, we're very stuck in goals and trying to satisfy this deep ache that is never really filled. So what this part is inviting us to is the world of healing not of our problems directly, but of this deep void within ourselves, this deep pain, this deep feeling of wretchedness and guilt that comes from believing that we're a separate, poor little me, and that we've destroyed heaven. And so it's inviting us and remembering us that no, there is no guilt. We did not destroy heaven. None of this is true. Come back home. And actually, we never left home. And so there's no guilt. There's no feeling that we left, we abandoned God, all of that. Let it go. None of it really happened. You're back. And so the whole course, our whole lifetime, our whole healing is an invitation, a gentle invitation back to the truth. All right, so I'll open it up. If anybody has any questions here or any comments or anything that stuck out to you, if not, it can be at the end.
Hi, Patrick, it's Monique. I have a question. When you're talking about healing,
yeah.
So if I achieve this healing of myself and consequently the world and the others, does that mean that the dream will end? So what?
Yeah. So so the dream never really happened, but yes. So why are we in this dream? We're in this dream because we feel like we deserve it. We feel like we're stuck here. We feel like we're a separate self, and we're stuck here through guilt and suffering and feelings of harm and things like that. Those things keep us a little bit stuck here. So each time we forgive, there's a little bit less guilt within the dream. There's a little bit, the innocence can start to shine through a little bit more. And so what that results in is healing, because there's less call for punishment within the dream. And so, when you achieve the healing, it's not really achieve, when you remember that you are healed, that you are whole, that you are one with God and with everyone, then the dream will end. And it will end in the sense, really in the end, that it never really happened. So it'll be gone, right? It won't just be like it ended in time. The time itself will dissolve. And so if you're talking about the healing of your body, then that's not entirely true. That might be one step, but that might be one reflection in the healing. But this, especially this section of the course, is talking about the healing of our mind, of remembering who we really are. And really, once we're fully healed, or we remember that we always have been fully healed, then healing doesn't really make any sense. What do you mean? And the perfect creation of God, how could I possibly be healed? What is this healing concept? It makes zero sense to me. And that's how it will kind of end, right? So what keeps us trapped here is the belief that we can create ourselves, the belief that ideas can leave their source, right? So that if we're a thought of God, how could we be unlike God, right? That's the thought that keeps us trapped here. And so once we realize that we can't be any different than God, we have to be like God in every way, then it will eventually just kind of end. And we'll remember what we are and never look back. Because there's actually nothing to look back on. It was all just a mistake. So if you think of, I've used with some people kind of that idea of waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a burglar coming into your room, right? You can see a man in a trench coat and in the doorway, and you're freaked out because there's somebody coming to get you, and it's this awful experience, right? And you're like, oh my God, where's the phone? I need to call the police. And then finally you get the lampstand and you open it up and you realize, oh my God, it was just a trench coat, right? It was just a coat on the coat hanger, right? And so so that horrible experience of being invaded, being threatened, of being in danger, it felt very real. And you're like, you could have been traumatized by that, right? And you could have been something that scarred you for the rest of your life until you turn the light on. You're like, oh my God, nobody even came after me. I was perfectly safe the entire time. Like, oh my God, there's nothing really to heal. There's nothing really to forgive, right? So it's not like you don't need to forgive the trench coat. You're kind of like, oh my God, I was just being stupid, right? You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way that the healing comes in a way that completely undoes it. And not like, see, there's not like, imagine that was a real burglar who's coming in to rob you or rape you or whatever it might be. Oh my God, you have to go through years of therapy. You'd have to forgive them or try to forgive them. You know what I mean? There's all this drama of things. But when you realize that, oh my God, it was all just a mistake, I was just a misperception. Oh, okay. Now it's done, undone completely. And so it's not something that needs to be healed in this deep, serious, onerous way. It's almost like, oh my God, I was just wrong, you know? And
Mhm.
it's all just undone. And you can laugh at it.
Mhm.
That's that the course talks about that. Um, Actually, I think it's a line in the course, right? This is a into the mind of the Son of God crept a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God forgot to laugh. Right? So we took it seriously. It's this world, this dream of insanity that we forgot to laugh about because of how insane it is. Right? So we thought it was real, and then we fell into the trauma. We got traumatized by a trench coat, and then we've been living with that trauma for the rest of our lives, not realizing that it was all just about a trench coat. We never were threatened. We were never in harm's way.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's not easy to see that. And so like it's kind of like our egos, we take this dream very, very seriously, right? And so that's what this course invites us to, is that we're mistaken. Our mind, it's not the problems in the world, it's our mind is just seeing them the wrong way. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Okay. So we'll move on to our lesson. I'll just pull up a couple things here and then we'll go to the meditation part. Um, so I try to pick out just different lessons that tend to reflect the coursework that we're kind of doing at the same time. So this is lesson 140. So only salvation can be said to cure. And I think we'll go through that in the lesson. But it's again this idea that when we have a problem within the world, when we have a bankruptcy, when we have a broken body, um, when we have a conflicted relationship that's full of animosity, we need to remember what we're praying for is not God, fix that nasty neighbor who's all mean to me or whatever, or uh, or get me a good job that's has good pay or whatever, or with a boss who's nice to me or whatever. That's but rather like you're off the mark there. You're stuck in the dream, you're stuck in the matrix. So we're not off. Like, so we're not supposed to deny that this is a problem or whatever. I mean, you can at some level. But what we're asking really is, God, heal my mind that is seeing this problem. God, heal my mind that is seeing myself as vulnerable to problems, as weak uh, and innocent or guilty, right? And deserving of this life and these problems, right? And so that's where it's that slight turning inward that allows us to really get a deep level of healing. Um, and so that's what this lesson's kind of going on to. So cure is a word that cannot be applied to any remedy the world accepts as beneficial. What the world perceives as therapeutic is but what will make the body better. When it tries to heal the mind, it sees no separation from the body where it thinks the mind exists. Its forms of healing thus must substitute illusion for illusion. One belief in sickness takes another form, and so the patient now perceives himself as well. So again, this is the world's healing is of going from a sick body to a healthy body, and not as the dreamer of the healthy body, right? And so when we move to the dreamer state, we can still end up with a healthier body, but it is not because we followed some magic formula, but it's actually because we relieved the guilt that brought into our dream the desire for punishment, right? Or maybe that we felt we wanted to be the victim of some totalitarian government who gave us some gene therapy that ruined my body, right? So there, the mind is sick in seeing the guilt in somebody else. Guilt and blame are the exact same thing. Um, so yeah, from this perspective, this worldly healing, he is not healed. He merely had a dream that he was sick. And in the dream, he found a magic formula to make him well. Yet he has not awakened from the dream, and so his mind remains exactly as it was before. He has not seen the light that would awaken him and end the dream. End it, not just keep going with a better dream. What difference does the content of a dream make in reality? One either sleeps or wakens. There is nothing in between. We think there is. We think there's better and better dreams until you realize that none of these dreams will ever fill the void. Anyway, I think we'll get into this in the Beyond the Matrix meditation, so I'll get that started here.
This holy instant now, an instant to stop. And remember who and what you truly are, beyond the matrix of fear, lack, and limitation. All that seems to limit you in this world is only an illusion that demands your continued belief and attention in order to have any power over you. Now is your opportunity to let go of whatever stands in the way of your complete awareness of your true and original self. Before we begin today's practice, make your intention clear in your mind. What are you letting go of that has been in the way of your freedom and fulfillment? I'm letting go of fear, doubt, unforgiveness, judgment. What are you embracing that is in alignment with your desire to awaken to your true self? I am embracing love, trust, forgiveness, innocence. Take a moment to write your intention in the comments below, now or after your practice. Share them to solidify your intention in your own consciousness and in the world. And now, sit back with your spine upright. Get comfortable and take a deep, slow breath. And as you exhale, release both past and future. Release both memory and imagination, and become fully present in the now. And let's begin. I release the world from all I thought it was. This is the idea with which we practice today. The principle of truth behind this idea is that projection makes perception, and also that ideas do not leave their source. This means that the world that is pictured before us is a mental projection that stems from within, and it is within that we can change the outer picture. The world acts only as a mirror, reflecting our beliefs about the self. When those beliefs change, the outer picture changes along with them. The purpose of this practice, then, is to free the world from all the idle thoughts we ever held about it, and about all living things that we see upon this world, so that we can see it, the world, as it really is, without the projection of fear, lack, and separation. The world you see arises from your beliefs about yourself. Beliefs about who you are, where you are, what your purpose is, and why you are here. These beliefs form the foundation of the mental projection that you call the world. So contemplate then, what could keep the world in chains but your beliefs? And what could save the world except your true self? Belief is powerful indeed, and the thoughts you hold are mighty. Illusions are as strong in their effects as is the truth. Consider the example of somebody that we would deem as insane. The insane man thinks the world that he sees is real, and he does not doubt it, nor can he be swayed by questioning his beliefs. It is only when the source is raised to question that the hope of freedom comes to him at last. In the very same way, the world that you see is projected from within your mind, and you do not doubt that what you see is real. If others were to point out to you that maybe the way you see it is incorrect, the ego comes quickly to your aid to support you in defending your point of view. And yet, salvation and awakening is easily achieved, for anyone is free to change their mind, and all your thoughts will change with it. You can indeed free the past from what you thought before. You free the future from all ancient thoughts of seeking what you do not want to find. And the present now is all that remains of time. Here in the present, the world is set free. For as you let the past be lifted, and release the future from your ancient fear,